In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise. For Sherlock Holmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Holmes. Let's go! Topic 1. Cause of death, conclusion, poisoning from soap ingestion. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is the soap set so purposefully upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the fork reveals the answer. Und da liegt der Fehler. Well, you can't deny that the fork implies the man was eating something. Or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half of the bar of soap is left on the plate. But might there not be some other explanation? Ich finde, das sieht eher aus wie Butter, oder? Wie so ein Batzen Butter oder Margarine. Seife, finde ich, sieht ein bisschen anders aus, aber vielleicht damals nicht, okay. Something material that proved whether or not the man really ate some soap. Okay. Was ist das da unten? Other piece of soap. Teacup. Other piece of soap. Hier unten. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamsky must really have loved the stuff. Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at the soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table? What the... How can it be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. Okay, I guess dann ist das, ne?
Take that!
Oh yeah. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course, the other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really, for no depth of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo, and one that furnishes us with the answer we seek. For London's foul soap is besmirched by foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Mr. Holmes is still pushing the soap argument then. Perhaps he's suggesting the man licked the soap rather than ate it. If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? Contents of the plate. Teacup vielleicht? Yes, a western vessel for serving of infusions of dried tea leaves. It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Stop putting on airs. And it's empty. Ah, so we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest that he was drinking tea. My thoughts exactly. Okay, also wahrscheinlich der Teacup. Yes. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, Cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the centuries. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. Das muss ich auch aufnehmen. Das ist so ein geiles Bild. Die drei zusammen. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. Conclusion: poison in the teacup, or in the tea. Topic 1. Suicide or murder. No perpetrator present. The cause of death identified. We proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was it suicide or murder? The audience will recall that death occurred during the victim's last supper. Did the man dine and die alone? The single teacup suggests the answer. Ah, the Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deductions so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamspeare was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that, but what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for some more clues. Okay. Wait. Other teacup. Wieso haben wir das vorher nicht gesehen? War der vorher schon da? It's a teacup. It's another Western vessel for infused. It's a teacup! And it too is empty. Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand, we can assume that this is the cup from which Mr. Shamspeare was actually drinking. But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yes, I know exactly how you feel. Oh no.
Take that!
Oh no. Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were two teacups in this room all along. Ah! In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's last supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. Oh, what are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know exactly what, who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was in here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, you can try to ignore your feelings, but you cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I suppose not. Time to look around again. Okay, empty bottle. Pile of books. Oh nein. Oh nein. Sind die Bücher hier etwa die Bücher, die Natsume gekauft hat, die auf der Liste stehen? At first glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these three books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see, the titles read The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gaboriau. Das sind genau die Bücher. Oh nein. Wait. I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they are the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed. Soseki-san had just been to a bookshop and bought them, that's right. And now those 3 titles are here in the room of this victim. Yet Mr. Natsume claims never to have been here before. Das ist nicht gut. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. Pile of familiar books. Wir gucken uns nochmal die Empty Bottle an. It's empty. Empty of liquid, but full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Bother. Susato-san's quip in response was cleverer than my original will. Und broken lock gucken uns nochmal an. Oh dear, the latch is most definitely broken, isn't it? The door was kicked in by Mr. Natsume, according to what Mr. Garrett told the inspector. Who knew the short thin little legs had so much strength in them? I'm not sure the length of his legs is in any way significant here. Perhaps this says more about the poor state of the door than about Mr. Natsume's strength, actually. Careful. If he overheard that remark, he'd almost certainly have a lively response. I don't know. Can this broken lock really tell us anything about who was here? Nein. Es sind leider Gottes die Bücher.
Take that!
Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is a pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's a link to the truth. Ah! Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a second-hand bookshop. That's just a coincidence. In that case, you will be able to bring the same 2 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No, never! Non-negotiable! If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here on that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could only have brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Oh nein. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trials concluded in the Old Bailey. In short, there's only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in this room last night as a result of poisoning. And that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor... Oh nein. Was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Sherlock Holmes' great deduction. Conclusion: Soseki Natsume at the scene. I don't like where this is going. Aber wir wissen ja, dass er freigesprochen wird. Deduction complete, elementary. Weil er ja im Fall, wo Susato im Gericht war, schon wieder dabei ist. Und das ist ja in der Vergangenheit hier. Und wir wissen ja auch, dass er nach Japan kommt. Also, ich glaube das nicht. Not again! Not again! Not again! Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses! Yes? Door! Key! Locked! Entry, exit, entirely impossible! He's so flustered, he's being even stranger than normal. What, you think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You'd have had plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... Misery me! Sorry sir, you'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Moustache. Ah, you horrible hairlock Sholmes. He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Lo comes you and Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me, please. Please, I'm innocent. Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. Der Arme. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. So Siki-san found himself once again the prime suspect in the case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course. What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garrideb, who discovered Mr. Shamspeare. Ah, Mr. John Garrideb, yes. I expect we could find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right, we must remember to go and talk to him later then. Okay, dann gucken wir uns mal um. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder... Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for just such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British way. I just reread it now, one moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Yep, also es scheint nicht nur ein Jura-Buch zu sein, sondern ein wandelndes Google. Okay, was haben wir hier? Ah, one of the teacups that Mr. Shamspeare and his guests drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamspeare's. And the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Tsutsiki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so we can examine them in more detail later. The pair of teacups has been entered into the court record. The teacups used by Mr. Shamspeare and Mr. Natsume, the one with the green line around the rim was Mr. Natsume's. Okay, gucken wir uns das dann mal an. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspeare was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh really? I've never noticed before. You've never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gripe it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's the Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture, and most of them are Japanese. Oh man. Und hier, was haben wir hier? Mr. Natsume. This is a decant from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes, unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo. Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you on the proper way to take tea. The details of the pair of the teacups have been updated in the court record. There's no tearing on the inside of Mr. Natsume's cup. Okay. Haben wir noch irgendwas hier auf der Unterseite? Nein. Scheinbar nicht. Gut. Dann gucken wir uns weiter um. Das Fenster hier. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had in the property. It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up the windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh, what is it, Masusato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. True. Oh yes, it looks as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamspeare who did it, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room. Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. Seife? What? Outside? Brill, it's so cold outside. You can feel it through the scab. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap line up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at the soap. Ah! Do you see? In the middle there. There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinomaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what it's doing on this ramshackle old room? The bar of soap has been entered into the court record. A cheap bar of soap that was discovered just outside Mr. Shamspeare's window. It's one of two that were found here. Okay, das gucken wir uns auch nochmal genauer an. Was ist das hier? This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinomaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this is rather expensive soap. That doesn't seem likely, given who it belongs to. Ja. Okay, hier haben wir Kostüme. Look at these extravagant, bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room, with its grim, shady goings on. Warte, what? Ups. Goings on. Okay, ich hab's richtig gelesen. This one looks like a king's attire. A king. I've always dreamed of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be more suited to a feudal lord. A daimyo or such like. With a chonmage top knot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a chonmage. Chonmage? Ist das sowas, was wieder Pain hatte? Okay, kommen keine Ergebnisse, also irgendein Zopf. Oh, you'd look wonderful with one. And you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a John Mage and a sword? Ja, wahrscheinlich nichts Gutes. Okay, was ist das hier unten? What's this? It looks like a part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place perhaps, when you look around the room. There's no sign of a letter, or the rest of the envelope in fact, is there? Ah, she's right. And yet, here we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree, we'd better take this, just in case. The torn off end of envelope has been entered into the court record, a ripped piece of an envelope that was found in Mr. Shamspeare's room. The rest of the envelope could not be located. Okay. Gucken wir nochmal. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes, whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the whip here, the person in question must have been right-handed. Mr. Sato, I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruhodo. Never. Ja, ich bin tatsächlich auch am Überlegen, ob ich mal was von Sherlock Holmes lesen sollte. Weil ich den Charakter sehr mag hier in dem Game zumindest. Ich weiß, der hat natürlich nichts mit dem Original Character zu tun, aber trotzdem. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van Zieks. Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate them. Donate some to the needy. You can suggest it next time we meet. Oh Mann. Okay, gibt's hier sonst noch irgendwas, was wir inspekten können? Hier, den Stromkasten hier oder was das ist. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems in this district residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now you've pointed it out. I can see that there's a slot just here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean, if you put a coin in here? That's right, that would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So, if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold. Yes, or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter in our office. Okay, war's das? Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Ist das Gina? Nein, es ist Inspector Gregson wieder. Inspector Gregson? Back so soon? After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes time, this place will be cordoned off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in the cell again so soon. I'm sure we should probably go. And what? What? What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Ja! Was? Out, out, breathed Candle. Lies but a walking shadow. A poor player. Was? That struts and frets this hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed, oh happy day! What? Walking Dead! The Walking Dead, Leute! The Walking Dead! The Walking Dead!